Hey, Shalom, Shalom, and start off souls, but giving no praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahshua, Ba'ashem, Kakadash, the belongs to the apostle of Great Millstone, and honors you, brothers, doing the work of the Most High in truth and in sincerity. So, real quick, I saw this, I kind of chuckled. It says the new $1 bill design looks pretty cool. At first, it didn't click, but obviously, you see there, that's a 20, right? And someone pointed out somewhere. Oh no, I hate it when it does this. Yes, I mean this person he clicks it, but basically he got the joke as well because of inflation, right? But someone basically in the comments I had seen earlier on basically was bringing up the point that was like, look, most people aren't gonna get this joke. And he was saying that's kind of scary because most people don't realize that hyperinflation is coming to America, right? Why? Because guess what? Their eyes are closed, right? Right. The Lord has blinded these people's eyes, right? This is Isaiah 6 from verse 9. He says, and he said, go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Now, the main thing is these scriptures, right? That this verse is talking about, the fact that people, rather Israel, can't get and understand these scriptures, right? But, part of these is the prophecies of the hell that is to come, and people, right, can't, they can't fathom that the world that they know, that the world that they love so much is about to come to an end. Why? Why? Because pursuant to Psalm 49:11, they think that their house shall continue on forever, right? It says, make the heart of this people fat and make their ears heavy and shut their eyes, right? Unless they see with their eyes and hear with their ears. So they've all of the information that a famine, right, that a hyperinflation, that the end of this kingdom, all of this information is available to see, right? It's very easy to see if your eyes are open. But guess what? These people's eyes are closed, right? It says, and understand of their heart and convert and be healed. Right, then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the house without man, and the land be utterly desolate. Right, some of the apostles on down. Right, even you got people in the world, these so-called truthers, right, that are basically trying to sound an alarm, being like, yo, this society is finished, right? This whole kingdom's done, right? But guess what? People ain't able to receive it. They ain't able to receive it, and they don't want to, not don't want to, but they can't see it, right? They can't see it, and then when it's gonna be too late, right? When everything has happened, then they're gonna be like, oh yeah, we was warned by this. This is actually what was said, as Ezekiel 33:33, and when this cometh to pass, lo, it will come. Then shall they know that a prophet hath been among them, right? So when these things finally come, guess what? These people, they're gonna finally agree and be like, okay, cool, we were wrong, right? But what keeps happening, for example, is things will happen, then East will give them bread and circuses and make it look like things have gone back to normal, right? And then all of a sudden, they forget everything, right? They think, oh yeah, them guys, yeah, they were wrong again. But look, there's gonna come a time, and we're actually in that time. But once again, Esau's the witchcraft is strong, right? The witchcraft is strong. Point I made, the spirit, showed me the other day. For instance, is all of these infrastructure projects that he's continuing on, like here in the UK, in London rather, right? They just finished the Crossrail, right? Now, them continuously, doing these major infrastructure projects gives this illusion, right, that this man isn't about to implode this kingdom, right? But we know better, right? We understand that this is all part of the illusion, the Crossrail continuing, the new skyscrapers, the new office blocks, the new housing developments, and all of that. Those are all things that make people think that this kingdom is going to continue, but no, but this kingdom's done, right? No, it's not Amos 3 that I want. That one, Second Peter 3, isn't it? Yeah. Second Peter 3:3, right? It says, knowing this first, right, that there shall come in the last day scoffers walking after their own lusts, and saying, whereas the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Right, and that's what they say. Right, these scoffers, people scoffing, they like, oh, yeah, basically, I've been saying that things are normal, everything's normal. Look around you, right? And once again, that's what he saw. That's why one of the biggest, one of the most important things he did, right? To lull these people back into sort of false sense of security after this whole CV scare, right, was to basically bring back the bread and circuses, right? Because then the first one it was there was no circus, no bread, right? Everyone was panic buying and everything, and guess what? People thought they were on good case, right? What does the scripture say that suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, right? Let me read this real quick, right? It says Genesis 47 and 13. I'll start from 13. It says, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore. So the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And right now, right, through the power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, this devil Esau is engineering a famine. Right, when you look at everything that's happening with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, forget the energy for one part. The fact that you got lots of staple, you got wheat, right? Those two countries account for a lot of wheat, right? But then you look at gas and its usage, I believe, in fertilizer, right? Then you look at all of the fertilizer, not fertilizer, you look at all of the food factories that are burning down, or this has happened to them, that has happened to them, right? And then the fact that energy prices are going up, right? How do you think this food is gonna get processed in the plants and then get delivered to people's doors, right? So he is very much engineering a famine right before we speak, right? So it says, so the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. Right? It says, and Joseph brought the money into the Pharaoh's house. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Yahweh son, Joseph, right, and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For thy money faileth, for the money faileth, right? And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I'll give you for cattle if money fell, right? So basically, it got to a point where money wasn't good enough in Egypt. You needed something else. And these are the towns that we're coming into, right? Once again, on purpose, because what was the end of all this? The people sold themselves into slavery, right? Where is that? I mean, it's the point 23, I think it's a bit further up, right? But it says, then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land, right? So in the end, right, Joseph, you basically bought all of these Egyptians, right? And those Egyptians put themselves into slavery. And that's what he's planning to do at the end of, of all of these calamities, right? That the Lord is using him to bring upon the world. Because the thing that he thinks that he's doing these things, but no, it's the Lord that's putting a spirit in him to break down the economy in the way that he has, right? To build a world where everyone is reliant on one single source, right? Ultimately the government and the things that the government allows, right? Because at the end of the day, all of these governments are, in one way or another cahoots, right? That's why when you look at the last 2 years, basically every single government in one way or another, would you call it, reacted in the same way. All countries started talking about masks, right? The country, all countries locked down, and the countries that didn't lock down, guess what? They all, had, jab drives, right? If certain of them countries, if you didn't have XYZ, if you don't have XYZ, I mean, now it's become a lot more open again, but a lot of countries, like if you look at like East Asia, right? Good luck getting into East Asia without any form of compliance to this man's agenda, right? But that was the point in that one, right? But this is Ecclesiastes, right, 12 and 3. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they're few, right? So once again, all these different calamities, one of the things going to happen, things are going to get more expensive, right? Which means raw materials for businesses are going to get more expensive, which means those businesses are going to have to cut costs, right? The biggest expenditure for a business, for the most part, is staffing, right? For the most part, right? And in the majority of business, yeah, you get certain businesses where you've got very expensive like hardware and machinery, right? But even in those things, the amount of people that are required to maintain that hardware and all of that hardware is a major expenditure, right? Which is why you're seeing, for instance, also the advent of more and more AI, and AI is getting super smart these days. If you look up DALL-E, 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 right, and what it can do, right, and you can see just how far this man has gone, right? So, but based the point I was making there is, yeah, you get them businesses that will end up cutting costs, and the major cost is staff, right? And then when you got lots of people homeless, that then puts pressure on the government. Then the governments do what? The governments print more money, right? And printing money, all of this, what does that lead to, man? It leads to inflation and hyperinflation, right? Which is why, going back to this joke here, right? The new $1 bill, what is it? It's a 20, right? Then they're gonna be a 50, then they're gonna be 100. Then they're gonna have to start bringing out new notes like you have in Zimbabwe, right? Like you had in you know, man. I mean, I've seen some notes, some Zimbabwe notes, and that shit's hilarious, man. Right? It says, and those that look out the windows be dark, and that's your forecasters, right? You got the official forecasters that just spew the new world order line, right? However, right, you've got the actual people that have been looking and that are awake, right, and that ain't on the MSM mainstream media tip. And guess what? They're sounding their alarm. They're like, look, man, things are bad. Right, so the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Right, and then I got an account also of how in the scriptures of how bad things get. Right, it's the Second Kings 6:24 says, and it shall come to pass after this that Ben Hadad, a king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver, right? So things got so bad that they all, you was having to spend a lot for very little. So imagine how much a chicken was being sold for, if there were any, right? Imagine how expensive that would be, right? But then guess what also, right? It says verse 26 says, and as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, help, my lord, O king. And he said, if Yahweh do not help thee, when shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the winepress? And the king said unto her, what aileth thee? And she answered, this woman said unto me, give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we'll eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son and did eat him. And I said unto her the next day, give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son, right? So cannibalism, right? Eating your own the fruit of the womb, right? That's gonna come back, because things are gonna get bad out here. Why? Because the Lord has determined that things are gonna get bad out here. People are gonna suffer real bad in these last days, right? And they're not even aware, right? That's why, like I said, it was annoying, when you that I can't. It's annoying that I can't find. I hate when it does that, right? But literally, the point that the what's the word I'm looking for? The point that was made is like, look, most people, this joke flies over their head. Why? Because they're asleep and they ain't awake. Right, so as always, at Lordwood, I was edifying. Until next time, we say shalom.